Dozens of Biden administration staffers held a vigil, a protest outside the White House Wednesday night, calling for President Biden to support a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Now, of course, a ceasefire at this point would be a huge win for Hamas. They included political appointees, administration, and civil service career staffers. If you held a banner reading President Biden, your staff demands a ceasefire. Candles were arranged to spell out ceasefire. Is this just healthy debate or a reflection of unhealthy problems in the Biden administration? Back with us is Anthony Scaramucci, the former Trump White House communications director, Tudor Dixon, former Republican candidate for governor of Michigan, and Elie Mystal, the justice correspondent for The Nation. Anthony, what do you make of this?
I like it. I think it helps the president, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because it shows that there's a lot of humanity there. He's not going to switch, of course, and he's going to stay on the number that he needs to stay on. Hamas has to be defeated, and these atrocities, these unspeakable atrocities, I'm very saddened by. But you have to defeat Hamas if you're going to have stability and security.
But let me read what Josh Paul, a former State Department official who resigned in October over the administration's response, said. He spoke at the vigil. He said, "The American people and respected institutions like the United Nations are pleading for a ceasefire, but this administration is yet to listen. We demand President Biden and members of the cabinet to speak up, call for a permanent ceasefire, a release of all the hostages, and an immediate de-escalation now, and, we call for peace on earth." I mean, that's sort of a nice, theory. Oh, I demand all the hostages be released right now, and this ceasefire happens, etc. But do you think that these protests, this vigil, bad for Biden administration?
I disagree with putting it in good or bad categories here, just because the issue is very, I think, complicated and difficult. Whether the debate is good or bad, the debate is happening. The debate exists. And I think the question is less whether or not the debate is good or bad, and more, how is Biden handling the fact that there is serious disagreement within his own administration about his policy, about his foreign policy at this point. Now, I cannot speak to what Hamas is doing. I cannot speak to what Israel is doing. I am not an expert on that policy, and I am more humble than Jared Kushner. But I can say that Joe Biden is the leader of a fractured coalition on this issue, and he is yet to find a unifying voice on this particular subject, which is so rare for him because I think one of his strengths as a president and as a person is to strike unifying tones, is to strike comedy, at least within his own party, and he's not doing it right now, and that vigil is a great example.
Can I step in for 1 second? Because I agree with what Elie's saying, and I would just say this. If this was organized crime, then this would be very bad. That's when Santino broke with Don Corleone in the movie. But this is not organized crime. This is a political process, and he's allowing for the space for that disagreement. And this is where I have to applaud President Biden as it relates to foreign policy around Israel. Israel has the right to exist. Israel has the right to defend itself, and I think he has shown steadfast leadership here, and he needs to be applauded for two things: allowing for the space for the debate, because it's a political process, not organized crime, and sticking to his guns with one of our strongest allies.
Wait, what kind of a leader do you look like when your staff marches outside of your home and says you're wrong and demands you do something different, demands you change your
I want to hire those people. For me as a leader, I want to hire those people. They won't even show their faces. They have masks on. How would you hire them? You would never know who they are. They're embarrassed to say. He's no dummy. He knows who they are. I would hire those people. I would hire those people in a political process.
You would hire people who are saying, stand with the terrorists?
That's not what they're saying.
That's not what they're saying.
Are you kidding me?
Yes, that is not what they are saying.
They're looking at the atrocities on television.
The atrocity happened on October 7th from people who...
You don't watch television, though? You don't see the dead babies?
I do, and you know what? The Palestinians were just polled, and you know what they said? Over 75% of them say they believe that October 7th was the right thing to do.
Well, then what about the 25% that are also getting bombed? Even if I agreed with that number, what about the 25% that didn't agree that are still getting bombed?
Well, the response to that is that, you reap what you sow to some
collective
degree.
Punishment?
Yeah, well, it's not collective. It's war. It's called war. It's not collective punishment. It's called war, right? I mean, the bottom line is in any war.
No. This is not Germany in 1944 that's at full mobilization with their whole
correct. And as a result, there's also not carpet bombing the same way that there wasn't.
So the idea that these people at the vigil, that what they are doing is standing with terrorists, is just factually wrong. They're not. They're calling for peace. Now, maybe peace is not possible. Again, I'm not an expert there.
Then they're uneducated and they work in the White House. How terrifying is that?
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.